Do you all still remember when Distant Horizons released? What a game changer that was. It truly blew away the Minecraft community, generating fake chunks outside of your actual render distance, making it seem like the render distance of your world is a lot higher than it is in actuality. That is what Distant Horizons does, and you can see it in effect right here. My world looks absolutely beautiful. It looks very cool, but my render distance is only set to 12 chunks, which is not very high. Still, it looks very impressive. And that is because of Distant Horizons. Distant Horizons will generate something which we call LODs right outside of the actual render distance. You may not be able to see it that well right now. Okay, maybe you can see it a little bit by looking at the mountains back there. But when I zoom in, you can see that the terrain, all the way over there, is not actual terrain. And they are not actual blocks. These are fake blocks that have been put into place, LODs, to make it so it seems and feels like you're able to see a lot further. Well, you are actually able to see a lot further. If a player would make a building right over there, you would be able to see that in a low poly version as well. But yeah, it is pretty impressive stuff. Though without zooming, you don't notice it that much. It just looks great. As soon as you start zooming in though, the illusion starts to fall apart. So right here, you can see the difference between a chunk that has been generated by Minecraft itself and then a chunk which has been generated by Distant Horizons. You will see the texture is completely different. The grass is not there. It looks very pixelated. Then again, when I don't zoom in, you don't notice it that much. When we look at something further back though, you can see it starts to fall apart even more. Suddenly we start seeing small slab-like things. These types of blocks don't even exist in Minecraft. And the further you go back in Distant Horizons, the more it starts to fall apart. Like I don't even know what is this? I don't even know what this is supposed to be. And even though this may be nitpicking, for someone who does zoom in a lot in Minecraft, it can be quite annoying that everything outside of your actual render distance just doesn't look that great. But what if I told you there is a new mod, which kinda does the same as Distant Horizons, but they take a slightly different approach, which some players might prefer. Do make sure to double check if you're subscribed to the channel. The vast majority of my daily viewers are not, and I would appreciate it a lot if you did. Let's aim for the 200k. It is called Voxy, and just like Distant Horizons, it generates LODs outside of the normal render distance to make it seem like the render distance of Minecraft is a lot higher than it is in reality. Again, something which is very cool. So here we go. Once again, we have a beautiful world to our disposal. It looks at least just as impressive as with Distant Horizons installed, but something which you might notice by looking in this direction is that it is a lot harder to distinguish where the Minecraft loaded chunks stop and where the Voxy loaded chunks begin. Now when I actually zoom in using Zoomify, you can see that it is not that easy to tell which chunks are quote-unquote fake and which ones are real. And that is because Voxy keeps all of these LODs textured. So all of the grass blocks here, these ones are 100% fake, but they still look like real grass blocks. Now you can kinda see that it feels a bit flatter than normal, and the shadows and lightning just doesn't really seem correct. But even when zoomed in, it looks pretty good. And it doesn't matter how close it is. Of course, these blocks are fake, but really close. If we zoom into something all the way there in the back, you can see it is also still textured. Now that is awesome. So if you are a frequent zoom mod user like myself, then you will have a much better time using Voxy because everything will actually keep its texture. Now you might wonder, Kasai, why did you disable your shaders? When I enable my shaders here, then this is what it does. So at first glance, it doesn't look that bad, especially from here. It looks kinda alright. When you just take in the view this way, it looks fine. But from this position, it is actually a very clear line where the Voxy world gen begins and where the Minecraft world gen ends. You can very clearly see that suddenly all lighting effects just drop and suddenly it all becomes really dark. So you can see this is still a real chunk, a real Minecraft chunk. It's very light and then bam, dark. And when zooming in, so when just zooming into the background like this, you can see that, yes, the textures are there. But also, what am I looking at right now? It is so washed out. And I know, it could be because of my shaders, but using this shader pack, which is, by the way, one of the most famous shader packs out there, Complementary Unbound, my experience with Distant Horizons actually is a bit better because, I don't know, I don't like this that much. Let's try another shader pack though, just to see the difference. I am gonna get... Ooh, we could try BSL. BSL is also very popular. Let's have a look. BSL shaders, let's download it. I'm gonna keep it on default settings though. Okay, there we go. We are on BSL and it actually looks a lot better than before. You can still very clearly see which of these grass patches is actually rendered and which one is fake, but this definitely looks a lot better. It still looks kinda washed out though. Like everything over there just looks very foggy. Look, this is with shaders. This is without shaders. Still a little foggy, but nothing compared to with shaders. Now, as a comparison again, this is what the same world looks like. Also using the BSL shaders, but then with Distant Horizons. When you zoom in, you can see that it has a lot less detail. Of course, because of the way Distant Horizons works, you can mostly see it right at the point where the vanilla world generation ends. When you zoom in, look at that. Here you got vanilla. Here you got Distant Horizons. Very big difference right there. Interesting to see how these two mods kind of do the same thing, but the experience is actually quite different. Something I will note though, is that for my PC, it is handling Voxy way better than Distant Horizons. Maybe it is because the default settings of Distant Horizons are just different. These are my Distant Horizons settings. This is what it picked by default, but my PC is currently blowing like crazy. I don't have the best specs. I get a 2080 Ti with an Intel i9 9900K, 64 gigs of RAM. I mean, it's still a pretty good PC, but it's aging. But my PC is working to make this happen. With Voxy, it was more silent. That is not an official benchmark, by the way. That is just something I noticed. My PC seems to struggle more with Distant Horizons for whatever reason. Okay, I'm gonna make the switch again. Bam! Using Voxy again. Would you look at that? But yeah, no, I gotta say, now that I've switched between them a couple times, even though everything in the back is very washed out and the shading is really off as well, the experience do be a lot nicer in Voxy. Now, Voxy is made by the same developer as NVIDIA, so, you know, they know what they're doing. I will say though that it is absolutely not perfect. Fun to see, for example, is when I quit the game and I load back in, this is what that will look like. Yeah, okay, that looked fun. Also, this is fun. Look, this looks enjoyable, doesn't it? Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, we're now falling through the world, by the way. That is something which can happen. Don't worry, this mostly only happens at the start, when your world is just loading in. But it is good to keep in mind that it can happen. Oh, we're back. Would you look at... Hi. No, nothing happened. Don't worry. So yeah, that is something which can happen. I've never had that with Distant Horizons. It's also not a real problem. I'm just pointing some things out and showing you some stuff so you can kind of get the difference between these two mods. Because yeah, they are quite similar and they do quite similar things. So why would you choose one above the other? Well, these are things that could potentially weigh into your decision. And while it is absolutely true that Distant Horizons and Voxy simply do some stuff differently behind the scenes, the main thing that you, the user, wants to be looking out for is the difference in how the terrain looks and maybe how it performs. In my personal opinion, Voxy simply looks better. You may disagree, and that's fine. If you like the low poly look, then go for it. I, as somebody who zooms a lot, thinks it is pretty nice that everything still has a texture. You could argue that Distant Horizons on paper should have better performance because it doesn't have all of the textures. But again, my unofficial benchmark, which is my PC's fan speed, thinks differently. It is a lot more chill while using Voxy. And also I'm generally noticing less stutter and less FPS drops when playing with Voxy. Take this with a big grain of salt. This could be completely different for you and your PC. Please opt for the one that works best for you. But if both work fine for you, then you might want to give Voxy a try because it is really cool that everything just still has a texture. Now, of course, when we fly around like this, distance. You can see that chunks are actively being loaded in and they suddenly gain more detail. Of course, this is bound to happen, and this happens with Distant Horizons too. Nothing too crazy there. It is already really cool that the water stays consistent. So even when the water is outside of our actual render distance, so you can see this is now a fake chunk, this is a real chunk. When we go back a little, there we go. Now this is also a fake chunk. The water still looks the same, which is really cool. Now, something which does happen every once in a while is this. You see that there is kind of a separation between the real chunk and the fake chunk. Yeah, that sometimes appears. I think these are generally just issues that come with an LOD mod like this one. So no biggie, really. I would definitely recommend giving Voxy a try. It is really cool. It is an alternative of Distant Horizons that, in my opinion, works really well. It keeps the actual textures and detail on these fake chunks, which looks awesome, by the way, especially when you like zooming in. And from my own personal experience, my PC has less struggle running Voxy, which is also really, really cool. Who doesn't like better performance? Maybe on your PC, Distant Horizons does perform better, and if that's the case, go for it. Use what works best for you. Of course, Voxy, just like Distant Horizons, also needs your world to partly be pre-generated before it can show these impressive landscapes. So you probably want to use something like Chunky to pre-generate your terrain, so that your LOD mod can actually show you this impressive landscape. If you don't know how to use Chunky and you would like to, I've made a separate video on that a little while ago. Do make sure to check it out if you're interested. And that's it for today. Do make sure to subscribe to the channel, join my Discord. Thank you so much, channel members. And then I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. See you later. Bye bye.